Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled, and this is going to be one of our best of 2017 videos at the end of the year. This is going to be our top 10 new shows of 2017. This is the first of 4 end of year TV specials that we're doing over the next week or so.
Yes.
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 Yes. You're looking at it as if
I was counting them up in my head to see if it was 4, but you're right, it is.
Oh, I knew it was 4. I was
was
positive.
double checking.
I was positive on that. But hey, yeah. So this is the thing. We did this last year. This is the second time we've done this particular video. Most of the videos we did last year we're doing again this year. There's one difference. There's one we've swapped with another idea. More on that when we get to it. But best new shows was something we did last year. We'll do it again here. We have a combined list. We got together. We sat down. We sort of argued with each other, and we came up. Yes, we argued and we got our top 10 new shows of the year. So we're going to start at number 10, we're going to work our way down, we'll talk a little bit about each show, spoiler free of course, because the whole idea here is that you may not have seen all of these, and this will be a recommendation to you go and check them out.
Things everyone should watch.
Yeah, we'll do a couple of honorable mentions. The honorable mentions are actually specifically things that only one of us have watched, so they weren't eligible for the list itself, so it's just a chance for us to say, oh hey, and Connor's looking at me all scared.
I'm trying to remember what mine was.
I don't think you have one for this.
Do I not? That's okay.
I don't think so. Yeah, you have one for best shows in general, but you don't have.
Yeah. You're going. Oh, we've got these. And I'm like, I remember talking about this when we went through these things, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, no, don't worry. I've got an honorable mention or two. It's fine. But then we'll have a top 10, and that'll be that. And hopefully we'll have some fun and talk about some shows. So, yeah, it's worth mentioning as well, we take 2 weeks off of doing the news while we're doing this, because it's Christmas and New Year's, and news is typically much slower. I feel like I saw a reasonable amount of news this week, which is odd. It just means that the first news back at the start of January is potentially going to be a big one.
Yeah, when I said, you'll get a supersized episode, and you were like, nah, I'll be quiet, it's fine. You won't really.
Hey,
you might.
The next week may be super quiet. We'll see.
It might.
But with it, let's discount it then. So best new shows of the year. There's one fuzzy one. We'll explain when we get to it. I don't want to spoil it by explaining it before we start the list. So we'll get there. But yeah, so typically things that started in 2017. However, the exception to that, of course, is that there was a couple of things at the end of last year that we didn't see until after we did our list.
We leave this really late intentionally.
Yeah.
But a certain company likes giving us stuff at the end of the year now.
Yep. So we made the call that the stuff that was at there was eligible for this year's awards, even though technically it's a 2016 show. Yeah. The idea being that since we did this last time is the cut-off, so anything after that is eligible.
And this will apply for next year as well.
Yeah, of course. Whether that's new shows, whether that's just new seasons of shows. For example, Black Mirror season 4 is coming on the 29th. We couldn't we're not going to push the awards until January because we like doing it over Christmas. So
it'll be in next year's list, I'm sure.
Probably, most likely. So, without further ado, honourable mentions then before we get to the top 10. Both of them, but are mine. I have one comedy for you, and well, they're both kind of comedies actually. Now that I think about it, but one's a full-on sitcom, and the other one's more of a Netflix kind of half hour, but it's got a lot of drama to it, and there's more to it than just being funny.
Yeah.
That in question is Glow, which you did not watch. The 80s set ladies wrestling drama, or dramedy, maybe is more accurate term, starring Alison Brie. This was a show that I was looking forward to based on just kind of the idea of it being like a 10 episode almost sports movie, where because they get together starting this thing for the first time and they're all training to be wrestlers. None of them have ever done it before and they don't understand it and they're having to train. It's just like any movie where it's a singing competition at the end, they'll have to practice and learn to sing. Any movie where they're an ice hockey team, so they have to all practice throughout the movie, then they eventually win the big game at the end. That's kind of what I was expecting, and that is part of what it is. But it actually impressed me multiple times with just how kind of deep it got at a couple of moments. I think episode 8 in particular, there's a sort of big pinnacle moment for one or two of the characters, and it was actually a really poignant little sweet scene towards the end of the episode, which outright impressed me, because I remember, like, Matt reviewed it with me for the channel, and I remember saying to him, I was not expecting a scene of that caliber from this show. I was not expecting to feel feelings the way I did in that episode. So I'll give it points for being surprising, and I'll also give it points just for being genuinely entertaining, funny, and just a bit different from everything else. So, Glow. And another one which I won't talk about as long on is just a really good sitcom, Trial and Error, which we did the pilot for back when it aired back in like March. This is a John Lithgow sitcom in the style of Parks and Recreation. It is a delightful comedy with lots of kooky characters, and it's exactly the sort of thing that I want NBC to be pumping out. So
I did like the first episode a lot. I do still plan on watching this at some point. I'll get to it. It's just, time.
But yeah, so I just wanted to mention those because they weren't eligible for the main list. So let's get into it then. So number 10. Number 10 is The Tick. This is the Amazon show. Now, before anyone, this was the weird exception I was talking about before, because technically the pilot of this was in 2016, which we reviewed at the time. It was like October or maybe even August actually, 2016 last year. Obviously, it wasn't eligible for anything last year because it was just a pilot. I don't even think we knew if it was greenlit for a season when we got to the awards at the end of last year. Seemed unfair to count it then. And likewise, saying this year, it's not eligible because the first episode was in 2016, seemed equally unfair because then it's just never eligible for at least for a new show.
And it's also a little bit murky because I think this is the only thing on our list that we have not seen a full season of.
That is true. They made the choice to split the season in half, so we have half of the season. We'll get the other half there. I think half's enough to go on though to have an opinion on.
It is.
And I wouldn't have counted out other stuff though, had there not been. Like, if something was like halfway through its season at the time of recording, it was just on that late, I would have said that was eligible. I wouldn't have discounted it.
As long as it's you got to have at least a handful of episodes to to see it. It's got to be consistent at least.
Yeah, so I would have been fine with that. There's one or two shows that could have fallen into that category that maybe we didn't pick, so we didn't really hit that conundrum. But it was possible. So, but no, The Tick. I think a lot of what I said about Glow, actually, I'm going to echo here. And Netflix and Amazon seem to be doing this thing where they're taking kind of the idea of the comedy and making it a bit more than just the comedy. Where it's, at its core, it's a funny show and it's half hour long, but it actually has sweet characters. It has sort of poignant moments. It has an actual story with, that connects from episode to episode, and there's...
It's the sort of thing I often see cable TV doing in terms of their half-hour comedy shows. The difference is, I've never really found one of those I actually care about yet. Netflix and Amazon are the first people to make me like this.
Yeah, I think you often, at least for me, you often get this clash of tone in those shows. At least whenever I've tried them, I've often felt that way. Whereas, I don't know, the Tick for me, it nails this tone of having the fun elements, having the goofy Tick character from Peter Saravinovich, and, having the other stuff. Because then you have the sister character who... It's kind of the straight man in the show. She's the one who's reacting normally, like this world around us crazy, but she's the straight man who actually is our eyes through into the world. And
then you have glorious standout characters such as Danger Boat.
Danger Boat. You've got Jackie Earl Headley is the villain.
It's a blast. It really is. But it manages to do more than being just a blast.
Yeah, it's actually a good story, and I was really into it. The first 6 episodes are out. The second 6 are coming very early next year. It's like February, March, off the top of my head.
Yeah, we did discuss this at some point.
Yeah, we got a date. How would I remember this off the top of my head? But no, so very good first half of the season. Really excited about the second half. Now it does end in a bit of a cliffhanger, but that's okay. It works. It works as its one little half. They knew this was where it was going to break. They clearly knew that and gave it a sort of little cliffhanger as a result. So I would recommend it. Number 9 is Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. So we had Amazon there. We're jumping over to Netflix, and this was way back at the start. This was January. This was way back in January.
Yeah, this was took some remembering, this one.
Yeah, and this was the sort of thing where I'd seen the movie. I'd never read any of the books. It'd been a long time since I'd seen the movie, so I was familiar with the basic sort of idea of it, but not much beyond that.
I read the books, but I was a lot younger, and I think I read them before that movie even came out. So.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw the movie when it came out, but never since. So I was just as murky, basically.
Yeah. So we like Neil Patrick Harris, and we're like, okay, obviously we're going to give it a try. We'll see how it is. And obviously we had some concerns of, oh, maybe it's going to be a bit more kid orientated, and it won't be for us. That wouldn't necessarily make it bad, but it just wouldn't be something that we'd get into. And I think we were delighted by having something that was different from our usual content, because it was this childhood journey. The humour is very unique to that story.
It hit a family tone, but not a child's tone.
Yeah, very witty, a lot of good stuff. Patrick Warburton, of course, playing Lemony Snicket.
Yeah.
Coming on and narrating and doing his little funny bits. Interestingly, that he used to play a Tick, by the way, in an old version of that show. It's just a weird connection between the first two shows. But so you get that, and it was all two-parters. It was like an 8-episode season, and each book was 2 episodes, and it fit that pretty perfectly. The only downside to that is that it almost felt like you had to watch them in twos, because
you did, yeah.
Yeah. So that was the downside. But honestly, as far as like taking a work and adapting it, this felt like the most faithful possible way to sort of take the concept and sort of make it work.
And it had such a style to it as well. Like, you looked at it and you was like, okay, I know what this is just from the visual.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of Jean-Pierre Jeunet, a little bit of Tim Burton, a little bit of a few other people that I'm blanking on right now, but it feels very French, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It does, very European.
Yeah, it's European. It's got a European chic to it, kind of thing. It's got very artistic, very stylized. Buildings don't look real buildings, but that's okay. It gives it this unique feel.
And then the characters are very much caricatures. Like Neil Patrick Harris just plays up so much.
Oh sure,
and it gets crazy wacky, but it's just on that line of this is insane, but it works. It's got an appeal to anyone. Like, there's adult humor for us. There is definitely humor that will appeal to the children. It just works for that stuff.
Yeah, it's a high production value. It does not feel cheap at all. It looks just as good as the movie did. I mean, admittedly, the movie's came out in 2004, so a bit of a time jump in that sense. But still, that's still impressive. Like, most TV shows don't look as good as movies did 10 years ago or 15 years ago.
No, at least not movies with budget.
No, sure, yeah. But hey, so number 8, sticking with Netflix. I'm actually
sensing a pattern.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned there's going to be a lot of Netflix on this. Number 8 is Godless, which, again, you could argue this one's a little bit murky because it's a limited series. So, I mean, it's new, but it's not coming back. It's done.
Yeah, but we wanted to give it some recognition.
We wanted to give it some recognition because this is one where it's mostly style and not substance. The style itself is the substance. This is we mentioned how a series of unfortunate events looked good compared to the movie. Godless looks like a big budget movie.
Yeah, it looks good compared to anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of big sweeping shots. It's shot in 2.4:1. The nice big wide ratio. There's a lot of panoramic stuff. There's a lot of horse riding. There's a lot of silhouettes. There's a lot of other things. It's a drop dead gorgeous show.
Yeah.
It's beautiful stuff. The plot's very derivative. It's a very typical Western with a lot of typical Western characters and archetypes.
It manages to work because obviously it's longer than a Western movie. So instead of just picking, often a Western will go, right, here's the trope of this Western and we'll do that. This manages to do 3 or 4 in one go. So it kind of gives it a little bit of range while it's doing it.
And there is 1 or 2 things where it does subvert your expectations a little bit later on. There's a few things like that. But you're just along for the ride. It is expertly crafted in direction sense. It looks beautiful. Music's generally pretty good. Yeah. It's the big feel. It's one of those things where you're watching this, you're going, I can't believe this is a TV show. I can't believe that this is what it is.
Yeah, I was watching this in 4K on my TV, and I'm like, this is stunning. This is what 4K is for.
So number 7, still on Netflix. We are not endorsed by Netflix. I want to point that out at this point.
It just so happens Netflix pumped out a lot of good shit this year.
They did.
And they pumped out a lot of shit in general, like just too much.
Oh yeah, they did. There's stuff they pumped out we didn't like as well, but they pumped out a lot of good stuff. Number 7 is Maintenon. This was a show that this was not a surprising one. We were kind of this was on the radar for a long time. It was the David Fincher produced. He directed the first 2 episodes. It's very dark, set in the 70s. It's kind of the birth of the sort of criminal psychology or serial killer psychology of the FBI. It's these sort of young young sort of the new generation, if you will, at the time coming in saying, "Hey, what if we actually analyse why these people are like this? Can we predict who they are? Can we catch them because we recognise patterns in their behaviour?" And even if, and we actually joked as we were watching it, is they don't have the term serial killer, and we were waiting all season, when are they going to do it? When are they going to have that?
Yeah, we knew it was in the trailer.
Yeah, when are they going to bring it up? Like, when someone going to say, "Hey, we're going to call them serial killers"? Like, yeah. I was waiting for all
season.
Tease it out
for quite a while.
But no, it's a really fascinating story. The first episode's a little bit slow, but once it brings the team together, and once we have our core like pair or trio working the cases, it gets very invigorating. And honestly, the moment where you realise, oh no, I know what this show is, it's in the second episode when we get to our first interview with one of the serial killers, because they go and visit serial killers in prison and talk to them about their lives. Yeah. When you get to the first example of that, and you get to this Ed Kemper character, and they're all based on real people, by the way. They're all real killers that they've taken from real life. It's actors playing them, of course, but they're all based on the real people. He's phenomenal. He is creepy. He's fantastic. If you're interested in these subjects, if you're interested in like true crime stories, I think this is something that sort of works well for you, because it gets into the meat of all that stuff. But it's also a drama with characters.
It is. I think the only reason it's not higher is at points the pacing of the season lags a little, and at times it's maybe a little too dry.
It's a pretty dry show.
For the most part, it works though. Just every so often, you'll notice it. Yeah,
but it's very, very good. Highly recommend checking that out. So number 6, and this is where this is eligible from the last time we did this, even though it was technically 2016, comes in. Number 6 is Travelers, and this just missed us last year in terms of the cutoff, because this
by about a week.
Yeah, maybe even less than that. Travelers is a show which does air on Canada and Canadian TV, but for everyone else it goes up on Netflix when the season's done. And it went up last year, I want to say on the 21st, 22nd of December, right before Christmas.
Yeah, it was close.
And season 2 is coming soon. Season 2 is coming on the 26th. So we're looking forward. We're going to cover that as well, like we did last year. But obviously it got no recognition because we hadn't seen it yet last year. And when we were talking about this, we said, well, that would have made that list had we seen it.
And it felt unfair to just completely shaft it.
It did. So, especially since, and even for best show, if it was going to make that list, and it may not. You'll find out when we get to the best 10 shows in another video. But even in that list, it's like, well, season 1 was 2016, and we've not seen season 2 yet. So even in that case, it'd still be shafted. It's not even just a new category it's getting shafted out of. So we came up with the rule that anything after us recording the top 10s last year is eligible for the next one.
And let's be honest, it was also in part so that we knew that we could recognise Black Mirror at least potentially next year.
Yeah, that was the other thing, because we saw it coming again with Black Mirror this time, as well as season 2 of Travelers. So we we're planning for the future. Yeah, and it's fair. It means we get to recognise shows. So what is Travelers? Travelers is a time travel show in which a group of travellers. I don't want
let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, group of travellers from the future come back to present day, but not physically. They come back into other people's bodies. The idea of the show is that people who are going to die anyway, and of course they know who's going to die because it's the future, so they've got records. They'll beam into their heads right before they were going to die, and then they won't die, but they've not taken over someone's life who wasn't going to, like they've not taken anyone who
they do it at the very last second possible. It's like, okay, you were going to die, your life was over. This is essentially an empty vessel now, as far as we're concerned. And
the whole idea is that they're here, and there's many of these people coming back. We've got our main team of 5 that we're following. They're here because they're trying to prevent the future, because the future is really bad. The future is this post-apocalyptic, horrible place, and they need to try and fix it. So they've come back to the 21st, which is what they keep saying. They keep saying welcome to the 21st. It's a big thing in the show.
It is.
But, so, that's what the premise of the show is. And there's a lot of cool time travel theories that come up. It's very, I compared it to Terminator, just in the sense of coming back to the past to try and protect the future or change it.
Yeah, I think it's particularly fascinating because it's a one-way system.
There's no going back
forward. Yeah. They only know if things are affected because other people come back after them and go, okay, no, this is what we know. So they have a different experience to what they remember.
It's a show with a lot of rules. There is clear time travel rules in this show. and I love a good set of rules when it comes to these things, and it adheres to them, and it brings up new ideas based on them. It leads to new things based on the rules, and the characters are mostly pretty great, likable, and it's a really solid show actually, because this was one that came out of nowhere for us. We didn't even know about it, and it was like,
oh, hey, this is on Netflix. Do you want to check this out?
This sounds like something we might like, and we were kind of blown away with the quality.
That's something that's, you say, oh, it airs on network TV first in Canada. It's a co-production, and it does not feel like most network TV. It's got a real sense of style. It's really slick.
Yeah. For network TV, it's very slick. Travelers is worth checking out. So number 5, and Travelers was a co-production with Netflix, so we're still on Netflix. Number 5 is also Netflix, I'm sorry to say. I promise you we're breaking away from Netflix after that, though. I promise you. But Netflix have had a good year, clearly. Number 5 is Dear White People, which is a show that I don't think we had the expectations for necessarily. There was a lot of controversy and hubbub, for all the wrong reasons, of course.
Of course.
When it was announced.
People are dicks.
And we checked out the pilot, not thinking we would watch any of it past that. Not because we didn't think we'd like it, but because at that point, we hadn't had any of these half-hour Netflix shows yet, and we thought, oh, it's a sitcom, it's a comedy. We don't do comedies past episode 1.
So we didn't schedule in the time for it, because we were like, okay, well, we can schedule in 1, but okay, that's it.
Because in the past, with any network sitcom, we'll do the first one, see if it's any good, we'll review the pilot, but we don't usually do comedies because basically there's not a lot to say week to week, because you're just recounting the jokes you liked. That's basically what a sitcom review is after the first episode or so.
Yeah, but there's argument, like, okay, as a season, does it work? Does it hold up? But not as a episode to episode.
So we never planned time for it, and then Dear White People, we watched the first episode and go, holy crap, that was really good. It had plot, it feels like it's going to keep having plot, and it has layers, it has things to analyse, it's exploring ideas and themes, it's got a message, there's a lot there to digest. And we actually came back. People liked us reviewing the first one so much, we got requested to come back and watch the rest.
This is the first thing we've gone, okay, by request, we're doing more of this.
Yeah. We didn't have time when it went up in April to do the rest of it. We came back over the summer and did the rest of the season then. And I'm glad we did, because it was very, very good. Like we say, it has a lot of really strong characters, there's a lot of great messaging, and it obviously explores race, but it also actually explores a lot of other things as well. There's a lot of other things that naturally weave into it.
And this is all on a college campus, so it's all very much, how does this react to this kind of group of people? How do these students see these issues?
Yeah, and it tackles all these things, and it is also very funny. And it's funny through style and editing, style and the way it films things. It's not just characters cracking jokes. I mean, there's occasionally...
there is that as well at points.
Yeah, but a lot of it's not really that. A lot of it's how it's structured, how it's how it cuts between things. You've got a narrator at the start of the episodes who usually says something funny, but again, it's a very satirical...
So it's always ironic funny.
Yeah. I'd probably call it a satire at heart, actually, in a lot of ways.
I'd agree with that, yeah.
But Dear White People is worth watching.
And in terms of just the core plot, it actually has some twists and turns that you didn't really see coming.
Yeah, and there's genuine suspense at a couple of points.
Yeah, it really shakes things up.
So, no, Dear White People, really good. Yeah, which is why, and after that, that's why when Glow was coming around and that was a half hour, I'm like, no. I'll assume that we may actually want to keep talking about that. Well, not we as in me and you.
Yeah, not me, but you and Matt.
Yeah. So now when there's a half hour show coming from Netflix, I'm like, no, that actually might be worth reviewing episode to episode.
Yes, we have to plan for that now.
But hey, number 4, not a Netflix show. You'll be happy.
Yes, this is the first thing on the list that's not from a streaming service.
Yeah, you'll be happy to know. HBO brings us The Deuce, which is from the creators of The Wire. So naturally, as soon as I heard, those guys, probably going to be good.
Some interest, yeah.
Yeah, it's an 8-episode season. It is set in the 70s, in the sort of the downtown New York, with where all the prostitutes are, where all the sort of the porn theaters,
the seedy underbelly.
Yeah, It focuses on that, and it's basically the birth of the porn industry. Well, not the birth, mate. More the evolution of it, because it does exist in some capacity at the start of the show, but it's exploring kind of
more the mainstream porn industry.
Yeah, it's kind of exploring those ideas, which and the funny thing about the show is that the first episode doesn't even really touch upon that yet. It takes an episode or two before you even get to those ideas. It's a really much like The Wire. It's got a wide cast of characters, and there's some plot, but honestly it's more a character drama. It's about the characters and how they interact with each other.
There is a plot in the sense of things happen, but there is never an outside force affecting the plot, which, most TV shows will have something happens and the characters react.
Yeah.
This very, very, very rarely has that. There's only like once or twice in the entire season where it's usually just characters playing off each other and advancing through that.
Yeah, no, it's a good character drama, and that's largely what we were talking about. Whenever we talked about an episode, we were talking about, okay, what motivates the character in this scene? Why are they reacting this way to the other person? Does this make sense? And all of it usually adds up, and usually it's really engrossing because of that. Yeah. The depth is in the characters, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Having seen The Wire and seeing how those characters were written as well. Now, The Wire had arguably more plot than this does. Just in the case of season 1 of The Wire, they're trying to take down this crime boss.
That's it. There's never a goal for the characters in this. They're just kind of going through life, trying to get on with things, trying to survive.
But that doesn't matter. It sounds like it should, but it's well written enough that it doesn't matter.
That's it. You say, the characters don't like that. That's one of the core things of writing. Your character has to have a goal, something to work towards, and this kind of doesn't. They don't have anything to work towards. I mean, we know they do in a way because we can kind of see the trajectory, but they're not actively pursuing that.
Well, they all have personal goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's not an overall plot where you say, this is what they're all sort of coming together to achieve. It's not like that at all.
No.
They all have their own personal thing. Really strong characters. Occasionally quite funny as well, actually. If you actually think
darkly funny, yes.
Darkly funny. Obviously not one to watch with the parents. Or any kids of any kind.
Definitely not the kids.
No. A lot of adult content, of course, but really strong character drama is what I'd come back round to again. So, number 3 is Legion. And this is... I wouldn't say that I wasn't expecting this to be good, but I don't think when you told me, there's going to be a Legion TV show, because I've never really read about the character from the X-Men comics, but you do have Noah Hawley from Fargo running the show. So okay, all right, okay, it's on FX. That's again not Netflix.
There's some cred there.
Yeah, and I don't think I was prepared for that first episode when.
Oh no! When that opened and you're like, oh, this is what this show is. It's just not what you think.
But as it goes on, honestly, you start to think, no, this is exactly what a show about this character should have always been.
Yeah, it's like, why wouldn't it be this?
Yeah, but you never trust TV to do the right thing necessarily. You trust them to do the safe thing, and this is not a safe TV show. This is a show that starts off very confusing. It plays with the idea because the character has telepathic abilities and he can't control those telepathic abilities. There's a lot of weird and wacky stuff, and you have to interpret some of it. You have to kind of puzzle some of it together, and then the show makes some of it clear as it goes, and then some of it blows back out again, and it does all these crazy things. It has style, it has a lot of cool things. Aubrey Plaza's in it. She plays this crazy character. Dan Stevens is obviously the main character, and it's very, and I'm not just saying this because a lot of it's in a mental hospital, especially early on, but it does kind of feel like a superhero show, or the X-Men meets One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
It really does, and I mean that in every... And honestly, has one of the better villains that any of these superhero shows have had.
It's one with absolute presence and genuinely scary.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
It feels like a force. Feels like, this is like the odds are big.
A lot of the superhero shows, it's just like, it's someone we can... the hero will just beat him at the end. It's fine.
Yeah.
And, I still enjoy most of those shows. Don't get me wrong. But... This is just completely subverts those expectations and does something unique with it.
Yeah, so Legion's a standout. Really looking forward to season 2. It's great. And I liked all the supporting cast are really good as well. All the supporting characters. It's a nice wide array of again quirky, in various different ways. It does have that a bit of that Fargo feel
Yeah,
to
definitely.
it in some places, especially when you can't really tell if it's set present day or if it's set set in
Yeah,
the
and
80s.
okay, what's real, what's not. There's a bunch
Yeah.
of that stuff going on because obviously, like we said, a lot of things are in his head. He's in a mental institution.
Well then, number 2, The Handmaid's Tale. Hulu got a show on here. It didn't have an F from them last year. This is the again. This was one where we'd heard about it. It sounded interesting. Okay, kind of dystopian, where sort of men have taken control and women are outlawed and they're basically servants, and the handmaids specifically are given to families so they can have sex with the husbands and hopefully procreate, because having a child is a bit more difficult than it used to be, difficult to do, and it's set in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
And so it goes through. You get Elizabeth Moss as the main character. You get a really good cast though throughout. Honestly, you get Yvonne Strahovski's there, various people, and it's. I think again this was one where I don't think I was prepared for how good it was when I sat down to watch the first episode.
This is definitely the surprise of the year for me.
Really? Okay. Okay.
Because like I said, there's other shows that I was expecting to be good, but this one I was like, okay, could be decent, but we'll check it out. And then I watched the first one. I was like, okay, this is very good. And then obviously Hulu gives us the first 3 at once. By the end of those first 3, I was hooked.
Yeah, I think I was hooked still a little bit quicker than you were, because I came out of that first episode being super impressed. The direction and the writing and the acting, of course, were all.
Of course, and don't get me wrong, they're excellent even in the first episode. But it just took me that little bit extra to get hooked, which I think Hulu is aware of. I think they give us 3 intentionally.
Yeah, no, that's. I mean, I don't think there was any chance of us not coming back for episode 2 had it been.
Oh no, it was definitely
split
more
up.
than good enough to watch episode 2. Don't get me wrong, but I think for a lot of people who for people who aren't like us, who'll go, yeah, okay, we're definitely coming back next week.
Yeah.
Some people they might go, okay, I'm interested more, but if maybe a week they might forget.
But emotionally speaking, this show probably has some of the best payoff of anything we watched this year. By the time you get to the end, and some things that have been bubbling over and sort of building up all season finally come out. One of the big themes of the show that works really well is Elizabeth Moss's character is often narrating and speaking to us directly, because she's not allowed to speak really unless spoken to most of the time. She's not allowed to voice her concerns. Much like in a Nazi state, if you speak against your the people in control,
and
the SS come and take you away. It's very very much like that. And one of the things that works really well with that is later on in the season, when she finally cuts loose and lets it out, it is one of the most satisfying fist pumping moments of anything.
It is, and you mentioned how she's often talking to us. That gives us a lot of the humor in the show, which is surprisingly funny at times.
It actually is, yeah.
Where it'll often be, they'll play something and then she'll make a comment to us, which will provide the comedy.
Yeah, because a big thing in the show is that in order to just cope with the horrors, like the fact that her child's been taken away, the fact that she's basically a sex slave, she has to crack jokes to herself and to us to make it bearable. So it all works out, and it never feels cheap. It never feels forced. It never feels like.
It's not. Oh, this person should really not be cracking jokes. They're in a horrible situation. They're cracking the jokes because of that.
Yeah, it fits perfectly with who the character is and what's going on.
Yeah.
It's also it's a heavy show. It is emotionally draining.
Oh, it is.
There are several episodes which will absolutely pummel you into oblivion in terms of your emotions. And it's fantastic, and it's exploring a lot of very very simple but old ideas. A lot of looking at the hierarchy, looking at the way people are treated. And hell, I mean, this actually came out before all the sexual assault allegations in Hollywood, but it's kind of insane that it almost synced up with that.
It did. And like I say, these are not new ideas. I mean, it's based on a book that's been around for, I think, a couple of decades.
Yeah.
And the ideas go back further than that, of course, but it's such a well-crafted version.
I mean, they go back forever, basically.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So no, it's a fantastic show, well acted, well directed, very well written. Everything is at peak. It looks gorgeous as well. It's very well filmed. Everything. There's nothing to really fault.
There's not
at all. and it's fantastic. Looking forward to season 2. Season 2, they're saying it's on schedule for April again, which is impressive.
It's a nice surprise because a lot of other shows did not hit their year's gap this year.
No, and honestly, I don't even think it's worth mentioning anymore. I feel like that's just going to be the status quo for everything.
It's going to be the standard, yeah, and I'm okay with it. It's disappointing when I've got to go longer without some of my favourite shows, but hey, if that's what it takes.
Yeah, but in 5 years, when every show's just doing this all the time, you're never even going to think about it.
It's true.
You're just going to be waiting for when they announce season 2 is coming.
I mean, even now, like up until recently, it was very clearly there was the TV season. September through till May, give or take. Whereas now I feel, oh no, we have summer content. We have content this year over Christmas, like quite a reasonable amount.
Yeah,
we've never had that before.
Largely thanks to Netflix, but yeah. So
yeah, well, I mean Hulu as well.
So that's Handmaid's Tale. Excellent, top to bottom. Number 1, a dark horse, if you will, because it was at the end of the year. That was a perfect pun. Number 1 is dark. So we went 3 shows away from Netflix. We're back to Netflix for number 1.
Yep.
And we have this German original Netflix show about time travel at the top spot. And you because we had a serious debate. We were struggling as to what number 1 and number 2 were. We knew it was those 2 shows. We were debating heavily, and I was hesitant about putting if I can speak. I was hesitant about putting Dark at number 1 because I'm a little bit worried that it's the honeymoon phase.
No, that's understandable.
And I feel like Handmaid's Tale, 8 months later, still sitting the exact same way it did at the time.
Here's what I will say.
Yeah.
Handmaid's Tale emotionally pays off better.
Yes.
Undoubtedly. I'm not disputing that. However, Dark is one of the few shows where I've finished the season and gone, I want to watch that again as soon as possible. It's very rare I feel that way, because for the most part I'll be like, okay, I might watch it when season 2 comes out, and likely that's what I'll do because time. But I want to watch it again. I want to see the layers. I want to see the way things paid off and the way they were teased. Yeah,
I feel like a rewatch of Dark is going to prove very interesting when you actually know everything that season 1 was revealed by the end of it. Needless to say, it's a show about time travel. It's a show about kids being kidnapped. Time travel is involved. Beyond that, everything's a spoiler. So, that is the last of the plot we're going to mention.
Yeah, definitely. I think it looks fantastic. It has a style to it for sure.
It is, and it's a very dark style. And I say that because when I get screenshots to make images out of, they're usually too dark, and I have to brighten them. I have to boost the brightness on them so they don't look stupid. So
that doesn't surprise me.
So it's literally a very dark show. But it's heavy. It's dealing with serious topics because you've got kids being kidnapped and whatnot. But you've got this puzzle of time travel. You've got multiple time periods. You've got characters who you see in one time period, and then you see them being played by different actors in another time period. And you see that throughout. It's actually really. This is the thing. All throughout the season, we kept saying it is amazing how not confusing this is to watch, because after we watched the episode and we would talk about some of the episodes that introduced multiple versions of characters,
it would get complicated.
Yeah, we would struggle. We'd struggle a little bit with the names, and we'd be like, okay, this is a bit of a tangled web. We compared it to Twin Peaks a little bit and how there's so many characters and there's so many connections between them, and then you add into that multiple generations and all that. It's a giant web. But it actually kind of fits the whole theme of the show when we're talking about time, and time itself being this kind of web.
Yeah, everything's kind of tangled up, and that's very intentional. And how I mentioned on The Handmaid's Tale, you were hooked before I was. And I would say the same about Dark. The first episode, I was like, oh, okay, I didn't have time to necessarily enjoy it as much because I was just trying to figure out who everyone was. But now, thinking back at the episode, knowing who everyone is, what it was doing, I enjoy it more in hindsight. And it makes me want to watch it again, knowing who these characters are now, not having to sit there and go, okay, who's this, who's that, and just enjoy what it's doing.
This was one of these kind of shows, kind of like Lost or Twin Peaks, where if you're theorizing, you like piecing the puzzle together and coming up with weird theories and like, okay, after each episode, let's talk about what this could all mean and what's actually going on.
It certainly adds to the enjoyment. The conversation enhances the experience for sure.
Which is funny because it's a binge show. It's a show that goes up all at once, and most people are going to watch it in 1 or 2 sittings, probably.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say 1 or 2, more like 3 or 4 probably for most people, but. And I think that's interesting. I wonder if we enjoyed it more than many might because we did take the time between each episode to sit down and say, okay, what do we think now after that one?
I personally think I enjoyed it more that way because I know we used to do Netflix shows, that binge format. We'd sit down, we'd watch it all, and then talk about it, and it's fine. I think
that was okay to do that. But the problem with doing it that way though is that you miss out on a lot of the smaller details. When we sit down and talk about an episode of TV, and we spend 30 minutes, sometimes up to 60 minutes, depending on the episode, depending on what show it is, and we really get into the nitty-gritty, we talk about every moment, we talk about things that stand out, the layers that are there, predictions we have, theories we have. When you do the whole thing at the end, you forget so many small things, and you have to just hit the broad strokes.
Yeah, and here's why I want to credit Dark in a way. Episode to episode felt like, okay, no, that's what that episode was. That's what it was doing, and I understand that. Like it worked. Like you could have put this out weekly, and it would work. Whereas a lot of Netflix shows do struggle with that. That's something where there's a bunch of Netflix shows where they know it's all coming at once, so they feel like it can be a bit looser. It can, they can get away with it a bit more.
I'm going to dispute you on that now a little bit. I think that used to be true. I'm looking at every Netflix show we've mentioned in this list, and I don't think any of them suffer from that.
No, that's fair. This list, this handful on this list is true, but we've covered. There's a lot of other Netflix shows this year that have suffered from that, and that's part of the reason why they're not on this list.
And they all fall under one category, so I think that's unfair to say Netflix are to blame for that.
Okay, that's fair. Well, you're right. I'm thinking about it.
So I think you're actually referring to an outdated idea.
Quite possibly I am. It's one of those things that's in my head. So maybe I do need to reconsider.
Because I'm looking at every single one we've mentioned, and I don't think any of them suffer from the. They know you're going to binge it, so they cut corners. They make their life easy by just having it.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it over the list, seeing if anything does apply to that.
I think all of those would have worked weekly.
Yeah, I think the only one that might have struggled a bit is Mindhunter.
I don't think so.
That's fair. I mean, it's hard to say because I'll never experience it like that.
Yeah.
But it's the only one I think might suffer weekly.
But no, I really think that's.
Oh, I will say, a series of unfortunate events that would have suffered weekly unless they did 2 a week.
That's a weird case, though. That's a really specific thing.
It is very specific. Yeah.
So it's a very specific case, that one. But yeah, so I think, honestly, like I'd say watch Dark. If you're someone who doesn't typically watch foreign content, you know what? No, just give it a try. Like it's in German, yes, and yes, watch it in German with English subtitles.
Yeah, that's. I know. I've seen a bunch of articles just in the last day or so saying that this is Netflix's most watched original foreign content, which is not surprising given it actually got a lot of promotion, unlike some of their other foreign shows. But on there, I'm seeing a lot of comments on these articles going, "Oh, it sounds awful," like all the voice acting, it's awful. And like, because Netflix does a really dick move and puts the English dub first as the default setting, and it's just unacceptable for them to do that. They're promoting this as a German show. They should be putting it in German with subtitles as the standard setting, because there are people who I've seen now. There are people who put this on and then have turned it off because of the dubbing, and that's just wrong.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that once you change it once, it remembers you've changed it for the whole show. You never have to do it again.
Yeah, I wish they'd do that with the bloody 5.1 setting. I have to change that every bloody episode.
I don't know why
I don't know why it defaults to 5.1. I don't want it on 5.1 because I don't have a 5.1 system, and it will not let me put a standard setting. It makes me change it every single episode I watch.
Is this really the video to be whining about this on?
Yes, every time I get a chance.
Just get a 5.1 system. It shouldn't matter though. It should down mix anyways. So
Yeah, but the down mix isn't as good as the default mix.
well, it's not default. You're arguing that it's not the default.
No, okay, the down mix isn't as good as the actual mix for what it's supposed to be.
Okay. But hey, so Dark, you went on a tangent there.
I did. It's an excellent show, Tangled Web, and the ideas that it gets at are just so fascinating.
It's pure hardcore science fiction. It's what it is. And then the other thing I'd want to compliment as well is that characters react in a very natural way to a lot of things. They don't necessarily start to believe there's time travel until there is just enough proof. There's enough things to make them doubt that this is just normal anymore. And even when stuff is presented to them, they look for other explanations. And they're explanations that make sense to think about. And logically, yeah, that would be the thing you'd maybe think it was first, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, they explore every avenue.
So no, it's a really solid time travel show. Very different from Travelers, which is also a time travel show. But no, also highly recommended. So do check that out. And hey, so there you go. That is our top 10 new shows of the year. So yeah, that is us. So by all means, give us your best new shows of the year in the comments and all that stuff. If you want to support the channel, support the show, head over to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can do that over there. There'll be a link to that in the description, as well as some other relevant links. And get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz. On top of all that, you can look out for our next best of video, which should be coming in the next 2 or 3 days. So pretty soon, they'll be rolling through relatively quickly.
I have no idea which one it is, so I'm just going to nod along like I do.
We're recording it in like 5 minutes. So
yeah, but I can't remember which one we're doing next.
But you'll find out. So anyway, so that is us. That has been the best 10 new shows of 2017. So hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you got a couple of recommendations. And they're all things that we covered entirely on the channel.
Yeah, that was a stipulation for these things where there's that's why there's the honourable mentions that you had at the start, because they're not things that both of us watched.
Yeah, they're all things. Well, it's not even just that we both watched. These are all things that you can go and find the reviews for, all of them. So you can go check out all those. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have a nice Christmas and New Year. Should you be listening to this, relative, recently to it going up.
It's usually when people listen to these, to be fair.
For the most part, you get the odd stragglers who come in later, and that's cool too. Yeah. But that is us, so thank you once again. We'll see you next time for the next best of. Have you got any vanilla?